Hi, it's Alexander Russo with The Grade. This is the Education Show, and I am so happy to have Scott Van Voorhis on to talk about his newsletter and all the things that he sees and does in Boston. Scott, welcome to the show.
Alexander, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
For people who might not know who you are yet, which seems impossible to me, but might be a thing, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've been a reporter in the Boston area for 3 decades now. I worked at the Boston Herald, Globe, other places. And about 4 years ago, I launched my own newsletter to fill in the gap in local news. There's a big problem around the country, locally. Not enough reporters, lots of things happening, especially in education news that just don't get reported. And that has been, just been building up the circulation, to use an old-fashioned word, and bringing on some new contributors and covering an education, and specifically public education, K through 12, but also higher ed is a significant issue that we spend a lot of time covering.
I didn't know you when you were doing traditional journalism, but I see your commentary more and more now in this non-traditional Substack world, and especially when you're writing about what's going on in education or what's going on in media coverage. I'm obviously very interested.
Sure.
Can you give us the 1 or 2 sentence take, the Scott Van Voorhis take on Boston media? Good, bad, getting better, getting worse? What's your take?
Yeah, sure. Boston media, I mean, on one hand, the city has been lucky that it's been able to keep actually 2 daily papers, the Globe and the Herald. I mean, a lot of it's online now. I mean, the print circulations have really shrunk.
Right.
But the digital subscriptions have replaced some of that. We actually have 2 public radio stations. So that's unusual. We have, but when you get down to the next rung, it starts to fall off pretty precipitously. A lot of the local papers are owned by the Gannett chain. They've eliminated a lot of the reporters. Some papers are just ghost papers, like weekly papers that would have covered like school board meetings, things like that. So,
right.
So there's a big gap there, and even the dailies don't really, or the public radio stations don't have the capacity or interest in sometimes really drilling down into these issues. I mean, it's one of many things they're trying to cover. And so the good news is it's my publication, there are other publications even more targeted that are looking at different communities and covering them like the old-fashioned dailies or weeklies would have done in the suburbs or in the city. But it means that a lot of stories just don't either get covered or they are covered in a way that doesn't really get to for whatever reason, doesn't get to the core of the issues that are kind of driving some of the challenges in education, especially in a big city like Boston.
And what's up with that? Boston has, as you just outlined, more outlets than a lot of places.
Sure.
And yet, and this happens in New York City and DC as well, the coverage isn't as good as those who used to do the coverage or those who watch the coverage closely think it could be. Why the quality problem if the quantity is relatively good?
Because I think that even then, I think even back when, let's say the 1990s, a few decades ago, and before a lot of print organizations got rid of a lot of their staff, it still was, education was a beat and it was important, but they didn't elevate it to the level of politics or business. And as their kind of capacity shrunk, the larger outlets, the capacity to cover the news, it's just proportionately shrunk, right? Like, now they don't there's less city hall coverage and because there's fewer reporters, and there's going to be less education coverage just because the number of reporters covering it has shrunk. So there's that issue. I also think that it's there's politics involved, and a lot of the issues of the Boston Public Schools get caught up into who is in the governor's office. Is it a Republican, a Democrat? The mayor, it's caught up in mayoral politics,
sorry to interrupt, Scott, but shouldn't the convergence of politics and education actually help the coverage? Doesn't it mean that City Hall and State House reporters can help the education folks?
That's a really good idea, right? That they should do more, dip into it. I just don't think it's written in that way or seen in that perspective.
Excellent. I've got a couple questions about the overall status of the ecosystem that you see.
Sure.
The education coverage or more broadly. Is there anyone out there who is generally hitting above their weight, doing a better job, as good or better a job as you might expect? And is there anyone in particular who's not doing as well as they could given the resources that they have?
Yeah, I would say there's an independent blogger, Will Austin. I mean, he's not a traditional journalist, but he writes Boston Focus.
Yeah.
He is very deeply kind of experienced with issues that BPS is facing. And he does digs into a lot of the numbers and the issues.
Right.
So that's a really good additional voice.
What about the traditional outlets? The Globe, GBH, WBUR, Commonwealth is a nonprofit, but
Commonwealth has Commonwealth Beacon, and they do a good job. It's a fair job. I mean, they don't really do. I would say they don't do a ton on education, but they do some, and they're willing to get into the policy issues. But they're kind of limited, I think, in their capacity to cover it as a beat. There's Last Night at the School Board. It's a podcast, which is actually excellent, and it just covers the BPS meetings, and It's fascinating. They do a great job of it. The Globe has at least one education beat writer, and they do a okay job. I guess I always believe in the Herald has somebody who jumps in on different points to cover things when they come up. I feel like they especially with the Globe, you could be doing more. Have another beat writer, have somebody else doing investigations. That people have just kind of accepted that the school either accepted that this is the status quo and they might say that, but like this is where we're at, or they in terms of scores and other challenges, or the Globe is somewhat partial towards the mayor. There's always that sense that you're gonna dig, but not really not gonna do a huge story on major deficiencies. They have done good stuff on to be fair, ESL issues. That program has been problematic, so they picked off different issues and do things. I guess I wish it was more. I mean, we're trying to do that, but I think they could be more aggressive and really treat it as it really is it's not acceptable, right? To have schools that aren't performing and failing students, and that should be that should be how you approach it. It's not just business as usual.
About 10 years ago, a Spotlight editor spoke in front of a bunch of educational reporters and said, we were slow and deferential in our treatment of the Catholic Church, and that delayed our energies and the rigor of our investigations into what was going on there, urging us not to do the same with school systems in the Boston area and nationally. And then about 5 years ago, the Boston Globe did a big series called the Valedictorians Project, you may remember.
That was excellent, yeah.
Which was excellent. And they spun that into a foundation-funded education team called The Great Divide at the Boston Globe.
Yes.
Usually called an education lab. There are versions of these around the country. What's your take on the sympathy of the paper towards the mayor? Why would that be? How strong is the evidence? When I get online, I see mostly people saying that the Globe is unnecessarily critical or unfairly critical.
That's really interesting. Yes. Yeah, and I don't think it doesn't play as clearly in. It certainly plays in their political coverage. I mean, they don't have it's I don't say deferential, but it takes a lot for them to start recognizing a problem. Maybe that's just the way they're approaching it, or it's hard to know.
And why would that be? I'm always careful about ascribing motives to people I don't know or whose work I only know. All I know at least is what stories people do and how well they do them or don't do them. What gives you?
I mean, I think it's I mean, it probably extends more into other issues, like in terms of business or development or politics,
right?
Where it's hard to I mean, we've been able to carve out a lane because we just said like, it's great that you're mayor, but and whatever you maybe. But we're going to look at things, we're going to look at things with an analytical eye towards, looking at things that aren't working, that we're not going to like hold back and just not write about things or sugarcoat them a little bit or soften them because I mean, I've been at papers where, you kind of know who the publisher's friends are and they're okay with you digging in one area, but not too much in another. I think the paper's owners, the Henrys, I think it's the perception, whether it's fair or not, is they're kind of and the mayor are somewhat in the same social circles. At one point, the publisher's wife, who's the Globe CEO, was an investor in a soccer team that the mayor has been involved with, trying to build a new stadium and a park. Where an old BPS stadium was built. The Globe did in the end, I think they did start to do some stories and have started following that, but it took a long time and it had a lot of opposition. This was a stadium that it was shocking that the city had just left to deteriorate the way it had.
Is there anyone... Sorry to interrupt, Scott. Is there anyone else who has joined you in taking a more skeptical, we'll believe it when we see it kind of approach to BPS or the mayor's office? And I assume there's a local Fox affiliate that does that kind of thing. And I don't know how you identify, but are there other folks joining you in this effort to scrutinize?
Yeah, I mean, I think... there are like I have a guy who does writing for me, David Mancusi's effectively kind of a beat writer now and doing lots of education policy issues. I think the Dorchester Dorchester Reporter does some really great stories and is a very good local publication. But I don't think they're just not. It's just there's not like that many actual dedicated education beat writers out there. It's kind of and so that makes it difficult, right? I mean that you're not. If you're understaffed, then you're kind of at some point, what's your capacity to really go beyond some of the big issues? And the Globe has picked at spots here and there, like the valedictorian issue, and some good things like that.
Very recently, they've done a lot on literacy and literacy reform. You might have seen Christopher Huffaker. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he's done some pieces, including one this week about the blue states lag in literacy reform.
Yes, no, and that's been a big issue, and they've been have done some good coverage on that, which is more kind of a statewide issue, though it certainly affects BPS.
Right.
Um,
Who else is out there? If I can jump around a little bit,
no, go ahead.
you perform this dual function. You're both reporting, giving people information that you've dug up, original to you or in some obscure corner, and you're also doing media commentary. Is there anyone else who is watching the media closely, joining you, agreeing or disagreeing, but joining you in the belief that it's important and valuable to scrutinize what the media covers and how it covers it?
Yeah, no, there's actually Dan Kennedy, pretty well-known media critic.
Right.
He's a professor at Northeastern. He does the Media Nation blog.
Right.
And he gets excellent kind of first scoops on stuff, like with the, publisher of the Globe is announcing this, doing this. But I think he's juggling a couple different balls in the air, and that's not the Globe is one of many media institutions he's looking at, including, beyond New England, that he's looking at. I guess my philosophy with just covering other media has been in the Globe, but also the public radio stations, is that they're institutions, and somebody needs to be looking, at least be able to weigh in or report things that are going on there, because they are important institutions that still shape public policy, and they're in cases of the Globe, the owner is a very major sports team owner and a major developer in the city as well. So it's a lot of different things that are going on all at the same time that could kind of cross over and sometimes raise concerns in terms of conflicts.
One of the things, sorry again to interrupt. One of the things that's happened nationally that's interesting from my perspective is skeptical-minded, left-leaning news outlets emerging. The most notable one in 2025, according to me at least, is The Argument, which Jerusalem Dempsis and Kelsey Piper and a few other people taking a hard look at things from the left. Is there a Boston contrarian of the left coming at things from the left?
That's a really good that's an interesting observation. And I also want to add that BUR, GBH also do education stories, but they're also doing crime, they're also doing politics, they're also doing, you name it, like 10 different other things. And they also are limited in the resources and their ability to kind of provide the kind of beat coverage that, that's how I learned how to become a reporter. I reported on small towns, went all those school board meetings, talked to parents. I kind of got a foundation in that, and that kind of intensive reporting doesn't really happen anymore. But sorry to address your point. I think in the Boston area, it's kind of an unusual situation where all the state office holders are Democrats. There's a very tiny Republican Party in the legislature. They're divided between people who've kind of gone the Trump route and others that are more kind of traditional, like Charlie Baker, kind of middle of the road. So there's lots of kind of if you're a progressive, and you want news that's kind of catering to the issues you're worried about, you have the Globe, you have the radio stations. The Herald used to got a little crazy during the first Trump administration, but they've kind of backed away from some of the more extreme kind of just cheerleading, but they're limited. So at least the way I've interpreted contrarian is it's looking at who's in power, what they're doing, and what the accountability is. If there are a bunch of red state Republicans that would be doing the same thing, but it's a weird dynamic because while nationally we've had a shift to the right, here there's been, that's not really reflected. It's really kind of what people talk about, one party rule. There's not enough competition sometimes to keep people on there.
Not even competition from the left. Here in New York, for example, where I'm based, we had someone appear from the left to challenge the blue state hegemony, and that person's going to be mayor. I'm more interested.
Oh yes, ma'am. Yep, of course. Yep.
I'm more interested in media outlets that might come at these issues from a liberal, progressive, leftist perspective. For a time, there was a publication that did a great roundup of busing related stories that was based at BU, I think, but now they've moved down to Howard, I think it is. I'm forgetting the name of the.
Oh yeah, it is at the New England Investigative Reporting.
I was thinking of the Emancipator, actually.
Oh yeah, because there's also that, which I did some work for a while back. The Emancipator was a story that we covered because the Globe was behind it,
right,
initially,
right,
and then all of a sudden they started pulling the plug on it, and they were coming up when I would talk to, go to the spokesperson, they would say things like, well, we only meant it to be 2 years. Well, no one said this is a 2-year commitment and you're on your own. They just sort of and they did, quietly kind of backed away.
Yeah. They did a great job, at least occasionally, on education issues, especially around the anniversary of the Boston busing debacle.
Yeah, which is a huge issue that still, I mean, whether you live in Boston or the suburbs or anybody who grew up in that era,
right?
It was like an explosion. I mean, we're still dealing with and the city's still dealing with the reputational issues that it gained, unfortunately.
I've got two last questions for you. This has been great having you on, and I want to make sure.
I appreciate you having me on.
Plug your Substack. One question is, what are the big issues that you would like to be covered as thoroughly as possible, education-related issues in 2026? I know that there's a literacy reform making it through. I know that there's a MCAS topic. What are your wishes for high-quality education coverage in the Boston area for 2026?
My wish would be that, and I think we're going to try to do some of this, and we try to fill in that gap, is to pick some of the other issues that are out there and are important but aren't getting covered.
Like what?
Like the long ongoing struggle with getting students to show up for school. What's happening with is there any progress there? If you don't have kids in school, you can't get anywhere, right? I mean, if they're not in school, then you've lost the battle.
Yeah,
that still seems to be pretty high, elevated rates there. There's the issue at Boston Public Schools. They have a lot of schools that they're supporting that aren't full. They're in older buildings. There's money, probably just money going out the window with inefficient heating systems. But to change those things and to shut those down, schools are difficult. What's going to be done to kind of bite that bullet and rearrange those resources so they get to the kids, instead of just kind of supporting things that need to either be changed or those are two.
Those are two important ones. If you're looking for a model, by the way, the Washington Post did a series on attendance in DC public schools called Empty Desks, and discovered that there was a long-running pre-pandemic problem with the way that attendance was being handled.
Interesting.
And it's a really lovely piece that Robert Samuels worked on, and I'd love to see the Boston version of it. The other thing I think you're doing, is reviving Beat the Press. Is that right?
Yep, we had our first episode a few weeks ago. We're working on doing another one.
What is Beat the Press? For people who aren't familiar, what is Beat the Press, and why are you reviving it, and how are you paying for it?
Yes. So Beat the Press is a long-running media show on local media involved with people that were in the media, like Emily Rooney, who had been at GBH for many years and was in broadcast TV before that. Dan Kennedy, the media critic, other people would have a weekly kind of roundtable and would talk about not just the national issues, like, oh yeah, whoever the president was at that point, what they said and the coverage of that, but was also what is the Globe doing? How are local media outlets covering this
Right.
issue or that issue?
All the good stuff.
It was good, but it was on local TV, on the local and public broadcasting station, and then the plug got pulled on that a couple years ago. I think a lot of people missed it, wonder what was happening with it, and I just been trying to expand my range of contributors, and I reached out to Emily, and she was interested in doing writing for us, and she started doing that, and then she suggested she actually has that's her, it was her program. Let's do something. She would like to do something on that we could do and have it on Contrarian Boston on that platform. And so right now, I mean, it's like a lot of things. Like I guess it's getting paid by our subscribers, but it's I don't, at some point we probably want to look at doing a sponsorship or something like that. But right now, it's trying to bring it back, but in a very kind of a form that works for today, like a 6 minute, 7 minute formats with one issue, given that people are just divided or just have so many claims on their attention.
Brain rot.
And it also, I think, makes it a sharper conversation.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's very exciting. I'm so glad that she had the IP and could take it. I was surprised that GBH
she does
let you all use the name, but it's exciting that's happening, and I'm glad that you can pay for it through your Substack revenue.
Yeah.
To tell people, so people can find you and find your Substack, tell us where you are and tell us how to find you.
You can Google Contrarian Boston. That will probably bring it right up, or bring up stories that we've written. Or you can go to Substack and search there for Contrarian Boston. That'll also bring you to our publication.
And are you doing Beat the Press on Substack, or are you doing it somewhere else?
We're doing it on we've been doing it and basically using Zoom.
Okay.
And then uploading the video to Substack. Why I'm saying that is because you can now, and maybe we'll look at that. You can just directly do videos on Substack. So it's something I'll have to figure out. But at the moment, that seemed to be the quickest way just to start something.
Right. You're also, it should be mentioned, doing webinars, or at least one webinar, and I'm very happy to be scheduled to be on.
Yes. We're thrilled to have you as a panelist on January 15th at noon. I've been, we've been running the registration link and our issues that we send out. We're looking forward to having you, and we're have a great discussion on some of the issues in Massachusetts, and national as well, but that educators are dealing with. Literacy issue, the how to measure, graduation competency in terms of after the end of the MCAS graduation requirement here. There's a lot of things that are kind of that are happening, that are major issues in education policy and education in Massachusetts right now. So we're having a couple. Will Austin, we're having him on, who does the Boston Focus newsletter. And a couple other people. So we're looking forward to it, and I really appreciate it. It'll be great to have you on.
No, I'm happy to do it. And I'm very appreciative of this overview. We've rushed through a lot of topics, and I could ask you questions till the end of time, but I promise to only keep you a little while. I really appreciate your being on the show, Scott.
No, thanks for the great questions. I appreciate it. It was a really good conversation.